ladies, and welcome to the third episode of Her Sacred Threads podcast, a podcast created specifically for women who are looking to live their truth, reclaim their story, and create a life of transformation and purpose. I am your host, Bree, and today's conversation is going to be on perspective. If you look to my right, you'll see a glass here that is filled halfway with water, and yes, I'm getting ready to ask you the famous question of whether this glass is half empty or half full. We all know the answer to this question is that both answers are correct. This glass is indeed half empty just as much as it is half full. So how do we come to define the state of the glass if both answers are true? Well, you can always choose to accept its duality, right? That it is both half empty or half full, or you can choose, right? Half empty or half full. What you come to realize is that both options are merely perspectives, and our perspective is typically the lens through which we see our reality. Whether you accept or resist reality usually depends on how you see it. Do you see your life through the lens of fear, optimism, trauma, bias, a lack of self-love, an abundance of self-worth? Each of those perspectives, for lack of better words, will create different realities. But today, I want to speak directly to the women who see their lives through the lens of failure. I'm talking about women who feel a sense of guilt for having children early, or women who feel guilty about themselves because they can't have children at all. To the women who altered their reality, their identity, and their dreams for their children, their marriage, and their families. To the go-getter women who have the world at their feet, but no one to come home and share it with. To the women who hate to look in the mirror and face the body that they're in. To the women who look around and seem to see a bunch of women who know who they are, what they want, and achieve success and do it with confidence. But when you look in the mirror, you have no clue about who you are, what you want, or where you want to go. To all of you, I want to say, you are not alone. Research shows that in relation to men, women tend to report a higher incidence of feeling like a failure and higher levels of dissatisfaction with their life circumstances. And that dissatisfaction is usually attributed to the pressure to live up to societal norms. Especially for women in America, there is a strong emphasis on the social concept of being able to have it all and to have it all within a particular time frame. The sexy appearance, the career, motherhood, marriage, unwavering confidence, and the list goes on. And to be able to, more importantly, do it all with grace while still remaining in our feminine energy. But here's the thing about the human experience. Life usually ends up being a roller coaster ride of ups and downs, and no one is immune to the trials and the tribulations of the human condition. No one, male or female, can be everything all the time, all at once. The nature of life simply won't allow it. For society to put their expectation on you to have it all and expect you to do it all the time and do it with grace is not only unfair, it's unrealistic. If you are seeing your life through the lens of failure and you feel like a failure because you can't meet the expectation of having it all, I highly suggest that you take off those frames and try on a new pair of glasses. In every area of your life where you feel like a failure, I want you to ask yourself this question: whose lenses are these? Does this perspective that I have of myself and of my failures actually belong to me? Or does it belong to my parents, my friends, my partners, my abuser, societal norms, etc.? In sociology, this concept is called the looking glass self. It is the idea that we perceive ourselves based off of how we believe other people perceive us. A famous quote which is often attributed to this concept is, "I am not who I think I am. I am not who you think I am. I am what I think you think I am." And seeing yourself through the lens of somebody else's perception is like seeing yourself through a broken mirror. I don't care how good you've gotten at seeing yourself through that broken mirror. Because the mirror is broken, the reflection staring back at you is always going to be inaccurate. Ladies, we have to be able to define for ourselves who we are in the same way we have to be able to define for ourselves what is success and what is failure. which is all perspective. And I often find myself going back to a quote by Thomas Edison, and it goes a little along the lines of something like, maybe it isn't that you've failed 10,000 times. Maybe it's just that you found 10,000 ways not to do something, right? Which, when you think about it that way, you realize that your failures are actually just information, right? They help to inform you on how to do something different or better. And if you take that information and that feedback and you put it into practice, what you end up getting is progress. And when we progress, we are creating a space for us to do what I believe we were put on this earth to do in the first place, which is to grow and evolve. I want to share a story with you all about how the feedback from my own failures led me on a journey to self-love and self-awareness. So I actually started content creation almost 4 years ago, and every time I would get on a roll of getting where I would want to be, I would quit. And it was a repetitive cycle of me starting and quitting for a consecutive 3 years. Until one day I decided, you know what? It's time for me to quit altogether. I remember being in that space, not really understanding why I kept quitting. I knew that I wanted to use content creation to share my gifts, but I just couldn't commit no matter how hard I tried. Initially, I blamed it all on social media and everything apart from me, right? The algorithm isn't in my favor. People don't want to see me win. Seeing the highlight reels of other people's lives is making me insecure, which I must admit, there was certainly some truth to that one. But the reality is, it was much bigger than that. You know, whenever you ask the universe or God or whatever it is that you believe in to give you something, it always responds. And 9 times out of 10, that response is yes, no, or wait. And after many attempts of chasing my dreams and failing, I had come to the conclusion that the universe's response to my request to see my dreams come to fruition was no. And swallowing that pill was so hard because I had to accept that maybe what God had planned for me was completely different from what I had planned for my life. And I couldn't make sense of that because I believe that every gift that we have is a gift from God. And that when we see our dream in our mind's eye, that's one of the ways that God is calling us to our higher self. But nonetheless, as I walked the journey of pursuing my passions, I saw nothing but signs that told me to stop. And so I accepted what I believed to be defeat, and I stopped. I walked away from my dreams, my passions, content creation for almost 4 years, upset with myself once again for quitting and sitting around and thinking about what people thought about my inconsistency, afraid no one would ever take me or my passion seriously again. But with all of those fears, I followed the signs of the universe and I stopped. And because of it, I was left with little to no distractions and an abundant amount of time on my hands, and mainly abundant amount of time to think and feel. And that isolation and that quiet time forced me to address thoughts, feelings, and hurtful truths from my past that I didn't realize I was still carrying around today. And if I was physically able to take all of those feelings and all of those thoughts and lay them out on a table, I'd see that I had quite the project on my hands. And I wasn't going to be able to complete this project in a day, in a week, in a month, or even a year. It was going to take time. And so I took that time, and to be completely transparent, I'm still taking that time to try and deeply cultivate this loving relationship with myself. And on this journey to deeply cultivating this relationship with myself, it has really forced me to grow and evolve. And in my growth, I realized that had God given me everything I asked for when I was moving from a place of low self-esteem, desperation, lacking self-worth, lacking self-love, the very thing I prayed for would have destroyed me. The universe, God, it heard my prayers, but it saw me fully at the same time. And it knew that I was not ready for what I was asking it for. Hence my repeated failures. You know, just talking about this reminds me of actually this book right here. Unless you aren't a big reader, or maybe you've just been living under a rock, You probably heard of this book. It is called The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. It is an excellent book, and I highly suggest man, woman, whatever you identify as, I highly suggest if you are living the human experience to read this book. This book has a famous quote that goes something along the lines of, when you want something, all of the universe conspires to help you achieve it. And it's a book about a young man who goes on a journey to find his treasure, but he ends up realizing that his treasure was with him and in him all along. The universe also called me on a journey to turn my back on everything that I love and walk in a direction that seemed to be going in the opposite direction of everything that I prayed for. With my very limited wisdom, because I'm only 29 years old, but God willing, I have so many more years to live. Nonetheless, with my very limited wisdom, what I have come to realize is when you ask God or the universe for something, you usually don't find yourself in a situation where you wake up the very next day and you immediately have that thing that you asked for. Usually what God or the universe will do is put you in particular situations or circumstances that force you to align yourself with the things that you want. So let's say the thing that you want is a romantic relationship, right? So you pray to God, you align yourself with the energies of the universe, and you say, I want a husband. And God says, okay. And so you start to date. You start getting in these relationships. You start getting in these situationships. Okay, let's keep it real here. And every eligible bachelor is trash. And you're looking at the universe and you're looking at God and you're like, God, universe, I said that I wanted a husband. So you're talking to God and you're like, I don't get it. I prayed for a husband and every eligible bachelor that you have sent me is trash. And God looks at you and says, I know. And you're like, no, let's bring it back here. I said that I wanted a husband. I keep getting failed relationship after failed relationship. And God looks at you and says, exactly. And with every failed relationship, you have received feedback on the type of man that you would never want as a husband, which has only brought you closer to yourself and deepened your self awareness. And now you can take that feedback, put it into practice, and see progress toward aligning yourself with a man who was especially made just for you. That, my friends, is perspective. If you take nothing away from this podcast, I hope that you take with you that the key to changing your life is in controlling and managing your perspective. We see things how we choose to see them. Is the glass half empty or is it half full? The reality is you decide. The choice is yours to answer the question how you see fit. I made the choice to see the failures to pursuing my dreams as a calling to my destiny. I chose to trust the universe's plan for my life and to believe that whatever God had planned for me had to have been greater than whatever I had planned for myself. I chose and am still choosing to travel through that valley of darkness, and those choices brought me closer to self-worth and self-love. It led me to God's voice, and I hear that voice so clearly today. And what I realized now was when I was asking the universe or God to see my dreams come to fruition, they were never telling me no, only to wait, to do the work, and to simply live. Which begs me to ask you the question, what is the universe calling you to do? And how does the lens through which you see your life and yourself prevent you from doing it? Whatever it is that the universe is calling you to do, I hope you listen. Because even if the path looks opposite of what you dreamed, accepting that journey just might be the answer to your prayers. That's a wrap for today. See you next week.